So the standard bleed would be 0, 1, 2, 5. And then just go ahead and select this. Just make sure it's all locked in so the bleed goes all the way around. And I'm gonna teach you what a bleed is and why we need that. So depending on your local printer, they might want a bigger bleed. I've never seen a printer telling me that they need less than this. This is your standard. Some might need it even more, a bigger bleed. And by the way, this in millimeters would be 3 millimeters. And as far as your orientation, you can choose that from here. So it can be horizontal or vertical. Most of you are going to choose horizontal, but you guys can go into vertical for sure. Now keep in mind that we should keep our raster effects at 300. Always keep it at 300 and just click on create. So right now you guys see this red, that's our bleed. So anything out of it, let me just show you. Actually, we're just gonna take this in here just to show you what a bleed is. And I'm gonna make this big. So actually, I'm not gonna take it out of the bleed. So here we have our main object. Now let's put a background on it. And I'm just gonna select any color. And so here is my background for my kitty. And what we usually want is just a background to go up to our bleed. Now let's say you guys didn't have a bleed, this would happen. So you would have it up to the edge. And what happens when you print this, you go out and print this, well, you might even see a white border around your image if you're printing this. But if you want the colors to go right to the edge, that means you need a bleed. So again, that means we have to take all of this right to the edges of our bleed. And that way, when they go in and print this, what they're gonna do is when they cut this, they're gonna cut it right around the bleed. Usually right inside the bleed, not right at the bleed, but right inside the bleed. So just around here. So when that cutting happens, they're not really cutting any of your image because this blue, it counts as your image. So that's the reason of the bleed. I'm gonna further explain that a little bit once we prepare this for export. I can show you what that means exactly. And some printers do require you to get crop marks and a bunch of other stuff. Others just want the bleed and you're good to go. But again, I'm gonna get through that during our export, so just a second. So if I ever need to change anything in the document, change the bleeds, change everything from within it, let's say, even the orientation, you guys can still do that. And you can do that from File. So just go into File, and then from here, just go all the way down where it says Document Setup. So under Document Setup is where we can go on and change our bleeds. So if your printer tells you, oh, your bleed needs to be higher. So just bring it up and make sure this is locked so that way it changes everything. This is also from where you guys can change it from inches to centimeters or anything else, even pixels if you like that. There's your grid and all this other stuff. Now your preset, I would always choose high resolution, press on OK, and you are required to bring up your background, whatever it is. If it's white, you don't have to worry about bleeds, but generally speaking, if you have something that goes to the edges, you need that. And you should always think about your safety area whenever you're making an image or anything like that. So whether you have your image with a background or not, so let's take out the background just for now. And let's say you guys have your image, so let me just group this again because I think it was ungrouped. So I can move it all the way around. You never want to have it towards the edges. Not even if you have a bleed, you never want that to be at the edges. Because whatever information you guys have here, once they cut this, they can't screw up with the cutting. That's what I mean. So never, never, ever go towards the edges. Unless it's something that you don't really care that gets cut. But that's why, and that's the reason why you guys never want your image to go beyond the safety area. Your safety area would be around here. So if I just want to center this, I always want to leave a little bit of space. So see the space that I'm leaving here? That's, I would say, the minimum that you need. Now, if you're printing somewhere where they don't do bleeds, they don't really care, you're always gonna have that white border. Anyways, let's just put this back for our bleeds. So right now I made those bleeds really big so you guys can see what they are. Now, when it comes down to exporting, well, again, depends what you're exporting this for. If it's for printing, then you have to save it as. So go into File, Save As. So that's on the top, File, Save As. Then for Save As, just choose Save on Computer. And here is gonna be your format. So if this is for you, just you, to save it as a file so you can work on it later, always AI. But if you're gonna go on and print this out, PDF, then go into Save. Once you choose PDF, this is the important information. Go into compression, check out that everything looks fine. It's gonna be fine, by the way. And here it is. This is the most important part. marks and bleeds. This is up to your printer. I had a printer, just needed bleeds, and I'm done. Other printers wanted everything. Some printers just wanted those trim marks. So I'm gonna put everything so you guys can see what everything is, because your trim marks are different than your bleeds. Your bleeds is just something where the color goes out to a certain point, and your trim marks is where they're gonna cut, make that cut. Some people even call your trim marks your bleeds, because that's when they make their cut. But technically, they're two different things. Other than that, on your second option where it says compression, just make sure nothing moves from what it is. It should say do not downsample. Don't do it. Do not make it smaller than what it should be. And then I would leave it as Illustrator. However, you guys, and it is up to you, you guys can change this up. It's actually not even up to you. It's up to your printer. They might require you to do something else. But what I used to do is Illustrator, and that would always work. So Illustrator would always work. But sometimes I had to choose high quality print. So again, choose all print marks. High quality print works usually the best way. And down here below, you're gonna see bleeds. So use document bleeds. But if you didn't set up any bleeds, this would be the time that you guys would set them up. But just put a check mark since we did that already. Then we're gonna save this, and then we're gonna see the saved file. So right now we saved it. When we open up that PDF, here is everything. So we can see our trim marks. You guys can see the colors. So the reason why this is here is for you really to check how the colors are coming out. The trim marks are for them. Well, even the colors are for them really, but it's also for you. When usually they do when you're gonna do a large scale print, then you usually need to see a proof. So you guys need to go on, print just one sample, see if the colors look good, take a look at everything, then go on and send it out to be printed. So right now, if they want to cut this, here are the trim marks. So that's why some printers may ask you for those trim marks, others just want the bleeds, and they will add the trim marks later on. So I had both experiences with printers that require those crop marks and others that don't. Crop or trim marks are the same thing, by the way. Now, if I didn't have any bleeds, once they print this, you would see a white space like so, like you guys see on this side. It's just an example. In this case, that doesn't matter, by the way. The crop marks are inside, so they're gonna cut the paper. So that's if you're exporting this for that reason. Other than that, you can go into File, Export, and you have Export for Screens and Export As. I would go for Export As, and then from here you're gonna have various options. Going to PNG, which is very popular, Photoshop PSD, and so on. So you have all these options. The one that's most people do is PNG. If you're using this for web, most likely you're gonna do PNG. SVGs are becoming more popular nowadays because you guys can just put them, and they're very lightweight on your website, and they're always gonna look good because it's technically not a downsampled image, so it's not gonna be raster image such as in a PNG. This SVG would be a vector image. So that means we could open this up later on in Illustrator and mess around with it. But it also means as a vector image, you guys can zoom in as much as you want, make it as big or small as you want. It's never gonna become pixelated. Whereas we do PNG, it's gonna become a raster image where it can become pixelated once you zoom in a little too much. So just remember that. It depends what you're making this for. But generally speaking, I used a ton of SVGs on websites and PNGs as well. So let's just pretend we're using PNG because that's the most popular one. We're gonna save it to our desktop. Right here, I would never choose this option. I would always go high or at least 150 when you're saving this PNG. So that's up here, 150. Even if it's for a website, I would still use 150. Generally speaking, 300. Then it's gonna ask you background color. That's if there was a background color, but we already have one set up, so it doesn't really matter. We'll click on OK. And here is how our PNG looks like. So if we zoom in enough, you're gonna see those pixels. So see this? Starts looking like that. That means it's a rasterized image and we can actually see pixels now. Whereas the original right here, we can zoom in a lot. You're never gonna see those pixels. It's always gonna be a smooth line, smooth colors, no pixels whatsoever. But anyways, hopefully this helped you guys out. If you guys have any comments, questions, you guys can write down here in the comments area. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Thank you.